More news always can be found online at
Yeah, your voice, all of our voices are distorting.
USA Radio News. I'm Tim Berg.
The following is an America Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
Welcome to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada and the world's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host is Leland Faegre. Pretty nice day today. It's up near 60.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah.
Roads are good. You know, no trouble
No
at
trouble.
all.
No trouble at all.
Saw about 24 horses on the way up. So.
Well, America has a new meme since the weekend,
Well, let's go, Brendan.
Yeah, let's go, Brendan.
Now, is it Brandon or Brendan? That's what I like.
They're the same name, but Brandon is a little more old pagan Gaelic, as I understand it. Brendan is more Catholic. Saint Brendan the Navigator.
I want to go with Brendan.
Yeah.
Rather than Brandon, because...
Unbelievable moment. Brandon, you also told me you can hear the chants from the crowd. Let's go, Brandon.
See, she said Brandon. I think it should be Brendan.
Yeah.
Because we have our own Brendan. So
yeah, that's right.
we should be using
like,
that one.
Like I said, the way I understood it, what I learned was Bran and was a god of the.
Well, we know this.
Yeah, of the fertility or whatever, and Don was the god of the sky, or maybe vice versa, But Brendan was good old Catholic. Saint Brendan, who supposedly discovered America before Leif Erikson got here. You know, so that's the way it is. And my parents are very Catholic. They christened me Brendan. So.
And we're glad they did.
Yeah, Sister Deirdre, and Kathleen Bridget, and Ursula Grace. Oh, man, it just goes on.
Now, do our listeners know why this has become viral? This expression. That's the other issue.
Well, it's because
who's Brendan?
Well, he was the race car driver.
Uh-huh.
But the funny thing is, of course, is that the crowd was like in a lot of events, sporting events, and also in public when Biden has appeared in public.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
he's getting the real call.
Yeah, right.
You know,
the translation.
But let's go, Brandon is just a funny way of pointing out how America really feels about our president.
And they're using it overseas as well. Did you
Yes, they are. It's becoming an international sensation.
Where the term is much more accepted, they still don't have to use it. They can just say, "Let's go, Brandon."
Yeah. And not be censored, right?
And it just
so far they haven't censored it.
And it blows up right in their faces because how are you gonna censor that?
Right.
You can't say "Let's go, Brandon."
I guess not.
Very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental my physical as well as my mental fitness.
Uh huh. We're doing that.
And you know, we've had some sad news. Colin Powell died just yesterday, I believe, at 84 years old from COVID. Even though he was fully vaccinated, even though he had blood cancer, he was died because of COVID.
So he's part of that pandemic of the vaccinated, then?
Yes, he's part of the. Woo! Yes, he was also. The establishment is treating him as the most respected man in the White House, and what a legacy he left. But you know, he betrayed his own doctrine. You ever hear the Powell doctrine?
Mm-hmm.
Right? He invented the phrase, if you the world is like a pottery shop. If you break it, you got to keep it, and all that language. And we have to get in there with maximum force and do the job and then get out.
Because of all that weapons of mass destruction.
Right. Yeah.
It's hard to talk about these subjects without laughing.
I know.
Because it is humorous.
It is humorous because, in retrospect, we knew that this man that was supposed to be such a respected man, the black Secretary of State, and
came from nothing, really.
Right.
Worked his way up. He was
Right.
accepted the whole way up,
Mhm.
and even became a member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he
That's a
doesn't
big
get...
step up for, someone like him from the poor, the ghetto of New York.
Yep. But you see, this is what they do, and they've done this now at the turn of the last century. Remember, Rockefeller sort of ingratiated himself to Booker T. Washington. Remember that?
Yeah.
Because he was, as Biden described Barack Obama, he was articulate, well-dressed.
Yeah.
Not like all the other blacks.
Right, exactly. But unfortunately, there's a lot to that stereotype.
There is, but that's what Biden said. We're just quoting.
Yep. So the mainstream media, missed the ball completely. They went back and forth about, the blue check liberals were all over the social media saying that Paul and Kyle didn't die from being 84 years old or having blood cancer, but he died because we, the unvaccinated, we killed him.
Yeah, we infected him.
Yeah, that's right.
This is CNN.
Yeah. And let's face it, he was at, where was he when he died? He was in hospital, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so, he was in good care.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he was out in the forest someplace and unable to get access to quality medical care.
And many counties in America, but I also heard over the last couple of days, the two most vaccinated Irish counties, Wexford and Waterford, they're 99% vaccinated, and they've been hit hard with hundreds of COVID cases.
Mm-hmm.
Ireland is overall probably the most vaccinated country in all of Europe, with close to 75%.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening in the U.S. too. So
well, they're quite dutiful as a people,
Right.
If they trust the sources of information and their sources of power and influence, then they're quite comfortable.
You mean the Irish?
The Irish.
Yeah.
Ceding to that
Well,
authority.
there are base people in Ireland.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I've seen...
We've heard of the IRA.
Yeah, well, no, I've seen demonstrations for Trump and against Black Lives Matter, and there have been some demonstrations against the mandate, so they're not totally converted to wokeism.
Okay.
Get real. Get into Barbecue Reno.
Hi, this is Eddie Floyd. Let me tell you about my favorite non-profit public charity, Wainema Wild Horse Sanctuary, located on the Forsythe Ranch in Hallelujah Junction area. And please go to www.wainemaranch.com. That's WYNEMA ranch.com.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. I'm your host, Brennan Trainor, and my co-host is Lee Faegre. And, CNN is coming under a lot of fire lately.
Is it?
Yeah, about... it's amazing that I think that the wokeness is finally starting to catch up to them. In fact, this podcaster we talked about, Joe Rogan, he was a former MMA fighter and coach, and he's a real liberal, but he has a libertarian streak to him, that's for sure. But he had on CNN's medical director, Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
Now, why did Gupta even come on his show? That's the
well,
question
that is a good question.
Yeah, I'm good with
questions. I'm good with it, yeah. I mean, he probably didn't realize how exposed he was going to be. That
maybe they had some sort of a concordat before the show or something. I don't know, but he was very vulnerable in that situation.
Yes. And he was very evasive. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go ahead and see if we can get that clip?
About a drug that's been given out to billions and billions of people, a drug that was responsible for one of the inventors of it winning the Nobel Prize in 2015. Yeah, a drug that has been shown to stop viral replication in vitro. You know that, right? Why would they lie and say that's horse dewormer? I can afford people medicine, mother. This is ridiculous. It's just a lie.
I don't think anyone is
But don't you think that a lie like that is dangerous on a news network when you know that they know they're lying?
Exactly. They know that they know they're lying.
But to their viewership, they don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why it works for them, they think.
Yeah.
But you see, they've worn out their welcome even with their constituencies because, as we've seen by the numbers, they've reached new lows again.
Mm-hmm.
Both MSNBC and CNN have reached new lows in the ratings. So it isn't really working for them, but they don't care about that because it's a propaganda network.
This podcaster, Joe Rogan, he has more, listeners than CNN does, really.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. I haven't seen the numbers, but, another issue, keep in mind about Gupta is he's also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Oh, yeah. And, you can say that he had some courage to come on the show, but he dissembled. It took Rogan like 10 minutes to pin him down and finally get him to admit.
Yeah, it wasn't that quick.
No, it wasn't that quick.
As our clip suggests.
And he tried every trick of an evasive witness, so he knew what he was doing. He tried to disassemble, tried to ingratiate himself with Rogan. He tried to say, look at the FDA, they had that awful tweet. You can't blame us when the FDA is that bad. And he tried every trick in the book, but finally... it's a 3-hour show. Finally, Rogan cornered him, and he had to admit that CNN lied. But then, the next night, he went on Don Lemon's show and threw Rogan under the bus again.
Did he?
Yes, he did.
Well, I'm sure they took him to task when he showed up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, he'd be a fly on the wall when that happened.
He's a doctor. Why does he need... I guess he makes so much beaucoup money in television that he's afraid to lose his money.
Well, because they can't talk. You can't talk about monoclonal therapeutics over there at CNN.
You can't do anything like that. No. But what I'm saying is he is a doctor. He's kind of world famous. He could stand up to them. In my opinion, I don't know all the inner workings. Maybe it's not.
I think it's Fauci, and then it's Gupta. As far as
seems to me an insurmountable amount of money.
So that's what it is, and they'll suffer the consequences of their own ineptitude and irresponsible behavior. But there's still a handful of people that will tune into that network, and heaven knows why.
We talked about how Powell passed away, General Powell. But did you hear what Trump said?
I did see his statement.
Yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. He dismissed.
He called it right.
Yeah. He like always, he was very plain spoken. He said Powell was a classic rhino.
He was.
Who helped lie us into the Iraq War.
Voted for Barack Obama.
Exactly.
Twice, I think.
Twice.
Yeah.
I know.
He kissed everybody's ass on the way up, just like Booker T. Washington did to Rockefeller at the turn of the last century. That's what he did. But because he's an articulate black, dresses well. That's what Biden said about Barack Obama.
And in other news, the British Tory Member of Parliament, David Amis, was stabbed to death by a Somali black Islamist, according to news that others had to research because it's hard, they don't want to admit that his assailant was black or an Islamist, but...
And in a church, were they not in a church?
They may have. I think he was greeting people.
They were meeting in a church or something.
Oh yeah, he was greeting people, and the guy was in line to greet him, got up to him and stabbed him. This Tory MP, conservative MP, was a strong supporter of Black Lives Matter, and he also defended Harvey Weinstein until he was actually convicted. And he had an obituary in the Times of Israel, which praised him for being the honorary secretary of the Conservative Friends of Israel. Didn't help him with this other immigrant.
Did he happen to be Jewish?
I don't think so. I think he's a Shabbos Goy.
Yeah, I don't think he was.
Yeah. And then in Norway, another Muslim went on a killing spree with a bow and arrow.
Uh-huh. Because if you can't find a gun, you think of bow and arrows, don't you?
Yeah, sure. Or knives. You know, in New Zealand for a while, the stores were banning the sale of knives, but I think they stopped finally. Went off there. But I guess they're going to have bow and arrow control in Norway now. And the Norwegian police did not cover themselves in glory, according to news reports. They mostly cowered until he pretty much ran out of arrows before they arrested him.
Right. Well, you can't see that coming any quicker than you can a bullet.
No.
So.
And
they're not used to that up there.
There was an off-duty Norwegian cop, let's give them some props, who helped to get victims to safety with an arrow in his back.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's heroism, huh?
Yeah, that is. Give him some props there.
I hope he fell forward rather than backward.
Yeah.
I'll slip an extra shrimp on the barbie for you.
And what about Pete Buttigieg? He's been in the news, too.
Yep. Well, you know, he's transportation secretary.
I didn't know. I mean, I forgot. Yeah. We haven't seen him in so long.
Well, because that's his background, you know, his expertise. His transportation.
When he was a kid, he liked to go watch. He had a train set. He liked to watch the train.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yep. And I understand that prior to his being named transportation secretary, that when he was mayor of South Bend, that he didn't do such a good job with the transportation.
I understand they had a pothole problem in South Bend.
Yeah. So once again,
well, that makes them qualified, you know.
Maybe that's it.
You promote them up,
right? Because in government, nothing succeeds like failure.
Exactly.
I pooped my pants.
But anyway, he was on a 2-month parental leave due to he and his husband. I understand he's the bottom one in the arrangement. He and his husband adopted 2
Well, if he wasn't before,
children.
He is now.
Adopted 2 children.
He was on parental leave, was he?
Yeah, he was on 2 months parental leave, but he didn't tell anybody, or nobody knew about it.
Because when there are problems in these parts of the government, and that's your responsibility, you got to get out of there.
Yeah, I know.
We've seen this before with this guy.
Jen Paskey said she was on a Zoom call with him.
Oh, was she?
Yeah,
oh,
so
well,
she circled back.
Yeah.
Way to go, a-hole!
But, you know...
Yeah, he's very good. He is smart. I'll say that about him. He seems like his IQ is up there. When he served in Afghanistan, he was a limousine driver. Wasn't that it? He had a desk job and a limousine driver. If they needed somebody to move about Kabul, he was the go-to guy.
Right.
That was his official function. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what his description suggested, but that's
some kind of liaison. I think they would give the name to that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But he was in U.S. military uniform. And,
right.
You know that's.
Yeah, so he served the country.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Whatever, I'll do what I want.
I wasn't suggesting otherwise.
No. He probably drove the president around when the president
probably
was,
did.
You know, when Biden was over there saving the country.
Mm-hmm.
And, but since no one seemed to notice Pete, why can't we just not notice the Department of Transportation?
That would be nice, too.
Yeah. I mean, the Republic got along until 1966 without a Department of Transportation.
Well, they're going to be on the receiving end of this $3.5 trillion initial spending bill.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a big part of this, you know. And Pelosi said you don't need to know the details of the spending legislation to pass it.
That's kind of like Obamacare,
yeah,
wasn't
same
it?
thing.
Yeah.
We won't know.
You got to pass it first before you know what's in it.
We won't know until we pass it.
I don't have anything new for you on that, and we'll circle back with you directly.
Okay.
I can circle back. I'll circle back with you.
Somebody should.
Yep. Now, the only federal agencies that have ever been actually abolished are the Civil Aeronautics Board and the Interstate Commerce Commission.
Yep.
Remember Rick Perry when he ran for president?
Right.
He wanted to abolish 3 bureaucracies, but he couldn't remember the last one. It was
That's right. He forgot the last
Department of Energy, which he later became the head of.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. But he was just being Reagan-esque.
Yes.
Because Reagan had promised to eliminate education and energy when he was candidate for president. So
I know, but somehow they just can't quite get it done.
I think we need to lower our expectations.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now, back to the show.
Well, welcome back. It's Talking Truth to Power, and I'm your host, Brendan Trainor. My co-host is Leland Faegre.
And we do it so well, don't we?
Yes.
Let's go, Brendan.
You've heard of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Well, guess who went to Moscow last week?
Who?
The cookie lady of Kiev.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, if Biden and Blinken Biden Blinken, that sounds like a vaudeville team from the Catskills.
It does.
You know?
A comic duo.
Yes. I can't imagine why they would send Victoria Nuland to Russia.
Well, she's CFR.
Yeah, well, I know, but they must know that she wouldn't be welcome.
Oh, but that's immaterial.
If you forget who she is, she's actually, her family's born in Ukraine or maybe on the border with Ukraine. Happens to be Jewish, and she's married to the leading neocon in America, Robert Kagan, who by some strange coincidence is also Jewish.
Huh.
I can't figure out all these coincidences
that really
sometimes.
is interesting, isn't it?
So she went to Russia, and they had to, Russia had to get the U.S. to lift some sanctions on its people before they would even let her in the country.
I don't blame them.
Yeah. And then she didn't meet with Lavrov. He sent her a memo. She met with a deputy secretary of state.
But is Lavrov infected? There's a whole bunch of them that are infected.
I don't know if he's infected, but I think he didn't want to be infected with her.
So you're...
Brandon, you also told me you can hear the chants from the crowd.
Let's go, Brendan.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the pathogen.
Yes.
I don't think it is. It's just they didn't want to deal with her.
She left very, very disappointed.
The CFR doesn't have the influence there that it once did.
No. I wonder why. Now, she went there somehow to get 300 Russian diplomats to leave the United States. Russia told her that they would be happy to leave the United States entirely, but they're not going to trim their UN staff. And then, we never gave Russia back the San Francisco embassy that we took away from them due to sanctions.
Still persona non grata. Huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know. But Christopher Steele was also interviewed in the news.
I saw that, yeah.
And
something's coming.
Yeah.
They know something's coming.
In his, I think it's Durham. I think
Durham is about to indict.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they, people forget that in the dossier that he claimed that there was a Russian embassy in Florida when there is no Russian embassy.
There is no such thing. Was it Fort Lauderdale that he claimed?
I could have been Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
I think it was Fort Lauderdale.
Well, and Leland also wants Russia out of Africa. What is Russia doing in Africa? Well, the country of Mali is experiencing guerrilla warfare, and they are not happy with the French, who really want to take Mali back. Mali is a former colony of France, so they invited the Russian contractors in.
France wants to recolonize?
I think so.
Really?
They're itching to get back and
be a player.
Just like America's back, France is back.
I see.
That's Macron's slogan. Oh dear. So then, and also he would not budge on the Ukraine. The Russians are not going to talk directly with the president of Ukraine. He's supposed to go through and talk himself with the people of the Donbass, and American and Russian relations are really in a bad spot. Then we had General Lloyd Austin.
Mm-hmm. Right.
He's in the Eastern Europe right now, stirring up a bunch of trouble. He's talking to the people in Ukraine and Georgia and Romania, and kind of hinting that we want them into NATO, even though they're right on the border with Russia.
Got to save NATO.
Yes.
At all costs.
Yes.
It's the entanglement they need for whatever happens over there.
So Russia issued a statement that if Ukraine especially joined NATO, that would be beyond their red lines. And, the United States cannot defend tiny Georgia, cannot defend even the much bigger Ukraine. If it came down to an armed conflict, and let's keep our fingers crossed it wouldn't escalate to nuclear, then Russia would kick our butts in both places. And so we're just hanging them out to dry is what we are. I mean, unless they go completely bonkers and decide that they are willing to wage war over these countries that have absolutely nothing to do with our national security.
I don't see that happening.
No.
It's a scenario I just don't see developing at all.
But we have to protect them against Russian aggression.
Well, that's rhetoric. Yeah, that's
all it is. They keep
talk is cheap,
pumping up the rhetoric and then backing away from doing anything. It's the Biden-Blinken administration. Their foreign policy is just completely bonkers.
Are they going to take that on the road? Biden and Blinken.
Biden and Blinken, yes.
Do you want to play a game? Yeah. Who's the straight man there?
Abbott Costello. Yeah, who's Abbott? Who's Costello? Oh, yeah. So then, China has also been in the news. And
yeah, we heard about China being in the news.
So
flexing its delivery system's muscle.
Yes. And once again, China has issued some interesting statements. Xi gave a speech, Xi Jinping and the president.
That Xi?
Yeah, that Xi.
Uh-huh.
He gave a speech and he said that global hegemony is not in the Chinese DNA. And then the Chinese published, a statement in the newspapers that are semi-official organs.
Except for Taiwan.
Well, no, that's...
Taiwan's the exception.
Well, it's the exception because...
Oh, and maybe Australia, too, while we're at it.
Well, anyway, the statement said that China has no ambition to get into an arms race with the United States. They do not want...
Yeah, they don't want a race, no.
Yeah, they do not... they don't care that the United States claims that it can project military power all over the world,
right?
Except for Taiwan and the South China Seas.
Right.
That's their vital interest.
That's right.
And they're going to defend.
Has always been.
Yeah.
And this goes back to George S. Marshall. With a pen, he bragged that he had cut off the aid that Chiang Kai-shek needed to fight that war.
But I'm not a big fan of Chiang Kai-shek.
I'm not. We shouldn't have been involved with it at all. But what General Marshall did was assure a communist brand in the region by not supplying Chiang Kai-shek.
Okay.
So they expressed their bias. They revealed their bias was communist.
So, but again.
So now they're going after Chiang Kai-shek. Now that he's no longer with us, effectively, they're following through with the goal of Mao and Zhou Enlai. That's what it is.
Well, the goal of China for ages. I mean, Taiwan has always been a part of China.
Right. And I reject this idea that they don't have hegemonic interest in the region beyond Taiwan. It's just, that's great theater. It's great rhetoric for consumption, but it's not a reality.
So what is their history of hegemony?
Well, they don't have a history of hegemony, but they have it now.
I don't.
They're making up for lost time now.
Like the, it's way overblown. This aggression that they're supposedly doing in the South China Seas. I mean,
well, the hypersonic missile is a clear indication of where this is going, and this was technology we had, and Barack Obama declined to pursue it. This goes back to 12 or 13, something like that. So we had this.
I don't know if we had it.
Yeah, we did.
Well,
and we officially, with a stroke of a pen, like George S. Marshall, decided we weren't going to pursue that technology. So, well, this is the end result.
Yeah, well, the whole reason why the technology is being developed is because we pulled out of the anti-ballistic missile treaty.
Yeah,
and said that we're going to rely on anti-missile defense, i.e. Star Wars. And if that's the case, then if we think that we can knock out all their missiles, then we can do a first strike, believing that, if they come back at us, we'll knock out all their missiles.
Right, but this goes into the rhetoric on both sides of that there's this fierce animosity between the two governments. I reject that. I don't think that actually exists.
Between what two governments?
China and the United States.
You mean there's no rivalry now?
There is no rivalry now, no official rivalry. It's just rhetoric.
Yeah. I disagree, Lee. I think that they thought that would be the case when Kissinger went and opened up trade with China. They thought that China would be willing to join the New World Order, and I don't believe it is.
They have joined the New World Order.
Well, not really.
They control the World Health Organization, and they're working on all those other ones, too. China has hegemonic interests, not just regional interest, but apparatus interest in the United Nations. That's where the power is, in the United Nations itself.
Yeah.
And that's where they're going to wield it eventually. And Biden is setting up an acquiescence, just as Barack Obama did when he was president of the United States. He's been managing our decline, not just economically, but in foreign policy and military accomplishment as well, as this hypersonic missile reveals.
Yeah, but it's defensive.
Getting to know you.
Let me tell you about America Matters with Eddie Floyd. It comes on every Monday at noon. Don't want you to miss it. That's America Matters with Eddie Floyd.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now, back to the show.
Boy, the security around here is really kind of creepy. It's everywhere. Sounds Jewish.
Hey, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. And it's time for Jews in the News.
I was guessing that probably was around the corner.
And, this is going to be, this section is going to be so hot that we better give the JDL disclaimer twice. I mean,
The ADL?
The ADL, yeah. The,
could be the Jewish Defense League as well.
Right.
I mean, it could be anybody. Really.
Yeah. There's so many of them, you can get the acronyms all mixed up. Well, we acknowledge that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, and it's our main partner in the Middle East, our greatest friend, and they don't throw gays off of rooftops. And whenever we see Jews behaving badly, we must always remember each and every time it's always our fault.
Yep.
All right. So what we have today is in Texas, they passed a law, HB 3917, which caused...
Did they really?
Yeah, the Jewish community kind of freaked out over this. The law requires state schools. This was to combat critical race theory, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So they require state schools to present both points of view to students. And to everyone's shock and surprise, a Texas state administrator with the Carroll Independent School District in South Lake advised teachers that if they have a book about the Holocaust in their classroom, they should also offer students access to a book from an opposing perspective.
Really?
Really. Well, you can imagine the firestorm of moral indignation that caused.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a question of perspective. It's a question of morality, was what was thundered from the offices of the ADL.
What did we call it when we were in college? They called everything was comparative systems, right?
Right.
That was the expression. Comparative systems.
So I don't know what happened to Gina Petty, but some of the parents were frankly puzzled about what exactly the alternative other perspective is.
You mean there's another perspective?
Yeah. You mean we don't have to believe everything that they say about it? And but they're the brainwashed majority. And the cracks for the official story of the Holocaust started appearing early on. By the mid-50s, the official death count for Auschwitz had dropped from 4 million to 1 million, which is...
I thought it had started at 6.
Well, that's the total.
Yeah.
But Auschwitz alone, right after the war, they were claiming it was 4 million.
I see.
But now the plaque was changed because of the Polish government, and it changed it to 1 million. And then the German camp at Buchenwald supposedly had a mad doctor and his wife who turned Jews into lampshades and boiled them into soap. But that was discredited pretty quickly. There's no evidence for that. But a French comedian was recently sentenced to prison for questioning, for making fun of this trope. Can we call it a trope?
Yeah, we can call it a trope. And for how long was he sentenced to prison?
Well, they don't sentence you for a long time, but it's still an affront. I think he got 6 months or something.
Oh, that's still.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah. 31% of Americans surveyed recently, and 41% of millennials do not believe that 6 million Jews were killed during the Holocaust, and think the real death toll is at least 2 million lower. And in a survey that's from a survey on Jewish claims against Germany, a 2018 survey. Even more damning, a new poll shows 49% of QAnon followers and 32% of all right-leaning Republicans and 8% of leftists believe the rise of liberalism has equipped Jews to destroy Western institutions and in turn gain control of the world. Now that's a conspiracy theory that we can get behind. So, will Texas, a Republican state, allow that school library and other school libraries to carry a book that presents an alternative perspective on the Holocaust? So, what are the alternative perspectives? Well, I can't vouch for the actual...
Gosh, I hope we have enough time to go into those.
Yeah, I know, veracity, but some of the main ones are the demographic argument. The numbers don't add up. The number of Jews killed in World War II do not match the demographic studies of population pre- and post-war, and the numbers of those supposedly mass murdered and cremated are wildly impossible to have occurred in the time frame of the final solution.
Details.
There's never been found actual orders for the final solution. Supposedly a bureaucratic socialist Germany killed 6 million Jews solely on an unwritten code or kind of a unwritten directive, like a meeting of the minds.
So you're saying we need to lower our expectations?
Yes. Yeah.
We choose truth over facts.
There is little physical evidence in the so-called death camps of large cyanide steam rooms or Soviet diesel gas railroad cars or other claimed methods of mass death. Many believe that even if that many Jews were gassed, it would have been impossible to dispose of that many bodies by cremation. It would have taken hundreds, if not thousands of years. Large burials in the ground have also not been discovered, even though we now have techniques such as ground sonar to look for them. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So at any rate, I have a suggestion.
What is it?
There's an American non-Zionist Jew named Norman Finkelstein. You ever hear of him?
No, I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's a college professor, and about 12 years ago, he wrote a book called The Holocaust Industry. And
okay.
Yeah, and so that would be, in my opinion, that would be an excellent book to put in Texas schools to have an alternative perspective.
And a great way to describe it, I think, too.
Yes. And I heard him give a lecture recently, and he said both his parents were actually in German concentration camps, but they're both skeptics about the Holocaust industry. His mother said there were so many Jewish survivors of the Holocaust, it's a wonder any Jews were killed at all.
Well, it's like Kamala Harris said, I don't know what it is about those craters.
But on the other hand, in California, Governor Newsom, in a state that has over 500,000 Jewish people, most of them wealthy and powerful.
Is that all? 500,000?
I think 500,000. I think it's second to New York City in Jewish population in America, is requiring ethnic studies in all California schools.
Yeah, that's a recent development. He signed that into law a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
and they're not going to require an alternative point of view.
No,
definitely
not.
No. And Islam will only be presented through the lens of Islamophobia. That is how Americans think of Islam, or afraid of Islam, or whatever. So there will be no mention of the Palestinian issue. Also, white ethnicities like the Irish and the Italians will not be covered in the curriculum, even though both have been subjected to hateful discrimination.
You mean those genetically defective descendants of albino mutants? Those white people?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what Irish, no Irish need apply. And then for the Italians, you know what WAP stands for?
I'm not sure. I've always heard that derogatory expression, but I'm not sure what it stands for.
Without papers.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So that goes back 100 years.
Yeah, that goes back to the mass, The Godfather Part 1.
Right.
In the turn of the century. So there will be a governor's council on the Holocaust, and also not only the curriculum for the schools, but a specific government council to make sure, because so many millennials don't really appreciate what the Jews went through in World War II, that they will be sure to promote the true story, in their view, of the Holocaust. And so
again, we should lower our expectations.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
We're not in it. But let's go, Brendan.
Yes. So we just have to keep in mind that to question the standard Holocaust narrative, it's in itself immoral and unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You understand?
I do.
Well, I'm glad you do, because I mean, where would the world be if we doubted the eternal suffering of a nation, a tribe of people that somehow for 2,000 years always manages to be better off than the people that are persecuting them?
I think it has something to do with sinking ship entertainment. That's what I think it has something to do. And did you know that a young can win in Virginia could spell trouble for Democrats?
Oh,
Are you aware of that?
No.
Let's go, Brendan.
Most of us like to be out in the sun. That's why sunscreen and other safety measures are key to protecting your skin from aging and cancer. The FDA recommends using a sunscreen with a sun protection factor, or SPF, of 15 or higher. Also, look for broad spectrum on the label.
We could use that as a spot, to promote the show. Let's go, Brendan. They should do that. Eddie should do that.